All right, we're back. Episode 4 of On a Bender, betting with beverages, and it's doom and gloom right now, Duke.
It's been a tough couple weeks, that's for sure.
We are ice cold, you could say, but I think the theme of this episode is going to be either trust the process or rip up the process and do a new process, whatever we want to say. But it's all about some sort of process that we got to trust. It's a long season. It's only 3 weeks in. We have a short week right now, which throws some curveballs at us on a Monday night. But I think, maybe this time it's time for us to turn around.
If we don't win this week, maybe we should change it to the Fade Gods instead of betting with beverages.
I thought about it for this one, but I'll give us another chance. All right, as we usually do, we'll start off with our drinks of choice for this week. So as you can tell, I decided to go with changing the mojo and the juju here with full on a Bender gear, Trailer Park Bender jersey. We got our hat. So I think in that case, then we have to open up a nice little high life for the boys.
I unfortunately do not have any of those in my beer fridge in the garage.
I drank 10 of them from yesterday, so I had a few left.
I decided to go back to the basics, so I'm drinking what they call a basic beverage, which is a lime White Claw. It's a Monday, so I'm not trying to get rowdy. Maybe my picks will actually be decent. We'll see.
Cheers, you didn't drink, bro. You can't do that. There you go. All right, well, first we'll go back and look at what was another horrible week. Not far off again in some of the bets, but another week of 0-6 for us. Our year-long totals in the year-long race. Overall, I'm down 181. You're down 295, so it's not like we're down $1,000. But either way, we're not in good shape.
255 to be exact.
What was that?
I said 255 to be exact.
Is that what I said? Isn't it?
No, you said 295. I think.
Oh, 255. My bad. I'm not a math major. But I had, 2 bets come down to Newcastle. Really did think that they were going to just take it from the Wolves in that last game, but a couple injuries, a couple key guys not playing, some missed chances, and Wolves at home being a tough out. So my lock of the week, Newcastle lost, and then my parlay, which had Chelsea already won with a 10-man team, and Arsenal with the easy win, and then Newcastle there blew that one. So second week in a row, my parlay came down to the final bet of 3 and just didn't pull it out. And then my long shot was a complete whiff. I think I was 0 for 4 or something like that. So we won't even go there.
So obviously I was rooting for Newcastle to win on Sunday because I was hoping that you could finally get a win streak going here. Interestingly enough, if you actually go look, there's a site called understat.com. But if you go look at the expected goals for that specific game, Newcastle definitely should have won. They had 1.93 expected goals versus the 1.13 of the Wolves. And the worst part about it is if you actually go into the game and you actually look at the different shots and different opportunities that they had, in the 96th minute, there was a header that came in. That we both saw it. They actually gave that a 40% chance of going in. So, you basically just missed the lock of the week in your parlay by a header that goes in at least 40% of the time. So it's sometimes it's good to have these stats to go back and look at it, but then it can be so frustrating that you just miss it by such a small margin, which is unfortunate.
I was standing up in the living room ready to run around. Katie was still in bed, but she could hear me. So actually, speaking of it, you did some research, and maybe our followers do or don't know. Can you explain how they come up with expected goals in a quick 30-second version?
Yeah. So expected goals, obviously, it's obviously not a prediction. It's looking back on a specific game. Every single shot that a team takes, they take everything that's about that shot. They take the buildup. They take whether it was a cross, whether it was a header, whether it was a foot shot, whether it was off your pelvis. Like, they take all of this into play and determine what your odds are of scoring a specific, shot at a specific given time. So just because you have a PK doesn't necessarily mean that you have a 100% chance of scoring. Obviously, you can miss. A keeper can save it. So there's obviously an expected goal ratio of whenever someone has a PK, right? So let's say someone takes a shot from 45 yards out. The odds of that person scoring is probably less than 1%, right? So they take every shot that's in the game and then they add it up. And basically the way the stats work is when you get to an expected goal ratio of at least 1, then you should have a goal because of all the different chances. And just based on statistics, if you have an XG of 1, then you should have a goal. And obviously, if you go back and look at games, you obviously see teams, they have, an expected goal ratio of 3 and they have 2 goals. And then the other team had an expected goal ratio of 0.07 and they obviously had no goals. So it definitely has a direct correlation. Obviously, you're looking at the stats in hindsight, but it is interesting to go back and look at XG in each specific game in the matches.
Not a perfect science, but then again,
no, it's not. So. But it is interesting to see the different XG when someone plays at home versus away, and just how they perform. So what I've been seeing is actually pretty accurate to look at that stuff. So looking back at my bets, I had Leeds Brighton game over 2.5. I thought that was going to be an exciting game. It definitely wasn't. I think there was only 1 goal. Both teams had multiple opportunities to put it in, so I could easily see it being over 3 or over 2.5. But unfortunately, I missed out on that. My lock parlay of the week, I had Chelsea. Chelsea got a red card, so I'm thinking, oh, great, this is not going to win. Chelsea managed to actually pull out the victory 2-1, and they were down a man, which is crazy. My other one was Bournemouth under 0.5 goals. I thought this was a bounce back week for Liverpool, and they didn't go score. And that was a lock at 9 goals to nothing. And then the last game was Brentford. And I mean, if you again, the XG, it's not a perfect science, but if you go back and you look at all the different chances that Brentford actually had versus Everton, their expected goals were 2.28. So based on all of the chances that they had, they definitely had multiple opportunities to score against Everton. I mean, there was 2 different chances that were literally right in front of the Everton box that had a minimum a 40% chance of scoring, and they didn't score either of them. So, looking back, it's like, well, yeah, I know they didn't win. They tied. They actually got a late game equalizer to tie it, but at the same time, I feel like they should have won that game. So that's unfortunate. So I lost that one because of Brentford. And then my long shot, I actually do keep track of all these picks that I have.
I do want to pick as well.
Brentford was the only pick that I had. It was a 17 parlay. Obviously, some of the teams were Liverpool and Man City. Some of them had very good odds to win, but Brentford was sort of the only toss up. And I hit 6 out of 7. I also picked West Ham, which is a plus 215 underdog versus Villa. So unfortunately, just missed that one. It would have paid out, plus 2,639. So I feel like I'm honing in a little bit. We'll see what happens this week. Like you said at the beginning, it's going to be difficult to sort of manage what teams are going to do with their lineups. I know different teams, they don't like to play players, so close to each other because there's a midweek game and there's a game on the weekend.
They're going
to be moving lineups. They're not going to want to put their players through, 2 90-minute games. This is also going to impact fantasy for anyone that plays fantasy. Like, just keep an eye on, and think about which players may not be starting. So
I would like to think this week we're looking at teams more that are playing at home or have more depth is where you're going to see some advantages. Looking at my picks, I didn't fully follow that, but I think that we'll see that hopefully in these midweek games. I think you're going to see some younger guys playing or some guys that maybe haven't gotten some minutes. We'll talk about maybe like a Pulisic with Chelsea might get a start and see what he can do. But I think jumping into this recap last week's games, we covered a good amount of them just in those picks there. But to run through them, I think we started off the week with Man U on the road at Southampton. I think looking back on Friday's podcast, we knew that one was going to be kind of a tough one to call. Southampton plays tough at home. Man U had their breakout game, but we weren't sure if you were going to see that again. It wasn't a super exciting game. It ended up being 1-0 Man U with the victory. Actually, the expected goals was really tight at 1.36 for Southampton and 1.34 for Man U. So Southampton could have won that game, just missed their chances. Well, Man U happened to get one of them. So wouldn't say it was convincing by any means. And I think we said to kind of stick away from that game anyways, which seemed to be the case. But Man U did pull out the 1-goal victory on the road. Next up was Brentford and Everton, which you kind of talked about, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I won't add much. I think that, I predicted the win. I think if this game were to happen again tomorrow, I would still pick Brentford to win just based on their amount of chances and everything that sort of fell into play. Unfortunately, when you look at XG, sometimes it's in your favor and sometimes it goes against you. So, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So, for example, I picked Man U in my long shot parlay. And sure, I won. It was 1-0. But at the same time, like you just mentioned, the expected goals was like 1.36 versus 1.34. So I can't be mad that Brentford lost based off of XG because they should have scored. Because in reality, Southampton should have scored as well against Man U, which means I wouldn't have won that first pick. So unfortunately, but like I said, I like the odds. I like where they were at. And unfortunately, they just didn't get the W. Moving on to the next game, Leeds at Brighton. Go Gauls. This team is very tough to play. Currently sitting in second place, tied with 3 others. It wasn't a very exciting game like I thought it was going to be. Leeds had a chance in the 60th minute to tie the game, and from an XG perspective, that specific chance had a 69% chance of conversion into a goal. So it's like, now the game's all of a sudden 1-1 if they did score. And my guess is probably someone would have scored, in the last 30 minutes. But unfortunately, that game did not hit the over. I actually did like Brighton to win that game outright. But it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I think Brighton, we're seeing already is that team, and Reimer's been calling it, that team that might scare a top 4, really more like a top 6 spot this year, with just how good they are, consistent and deep, and the way they play at home. They're going to be tough for anybody to take down. The next game was Chelsea at home against Leicester. I think we both were picking Chelsea last week. I don't think we thought it would be with 10 men early on when Conor Gallagher decided to follow up his bad foul with another bad foul on a counter that was still on their own side of the offensive field. But he went down early. They rallied in the beginning of the second half with 2 goals pretty quickly. And then they gave up 1 to make it interesting. As always, the worst lead is the 2-1 lead after they've scored. And as you can see with the expected goals, Leicester actually had 1.96 versus 1.75 for Chelsea, which I think a lot of that came towards the end when they were just peppering it in on offense with one-man advantage and just going hard after it. But Chelsea held on. I think they're looking better. They just signed Fofana from Leicester for defense, 21-year-old stud, for I think another record fee for a defender, more than Harry Maguire. And we'll see what they do up top. They're still struggling outside Sterling from some offensive support. Again, I hope we see Pulisic tomorrow get some time, and hopefully he'll come out and score a goal and try to earn some more playing time, because it sounds like he was upset with their decision not to put him out on loan or let him leave after their meeting with ownership. So hopefully he can come out and try to win over the infamous Tuchel and his love for Havertz. So we'll see what happens there. Then there was the infamous Liverpool game. We knew this was going to be a blowout. We knew under half a goal for Bournemouth was a nice play. I think we both had that last week in different plays. They only had a 0.18 expected goals, so not even close. Meanwhile, Liverpool tied, I think, the record for biggest win in Premier League, 9-0. It's funny how their expected goals were only 4.86, so maybe the math just doesn't work for blowouts like that. But to outdo their expected goals by, a little like almost a little over 4 goals is pretty impressive. And unfortunately for fantasy and a lot of us, none of it was Salah, who just sat on the sideline and just didn't do anything. I think he missed a give me actually along the way there. But yeah, interesting win, but should have been our lock of the week considering what happened with the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is I could pick it as the lock of the week, but at the end of the day, if it's negative 1,000 or negative 1,500, then there's really no value in even betting on the game, because if they do tie or something, then you just lost a lot of money trying to make a very, very small penny. But yeah, the game was an absolute blowout. The next game that I was looking at was the Palace at City game. Haaland is an absolute beast. I love watching that dude play. I like how he plays. He doesn't have sort of the Latin America style type of play. He just where he's from, he just sort of runs a million miles an hour, and he's very fast and he's very physical. And because of that, he scored a hat trick. I don't like watching City, but I do like watching him play. Palace, some way, somehow, took a 2-0 lead against City. And now that the game is over, I can actually look at the XG stats to look at sort of what their expected goals were. It was actually 0.09. So they only had a 9% chance to score 1 goal, and somehow they scored 2, which is absolutely insane. The 1 goal they scored deflected off 3 different people, eventually went off a knee, and then just sort of deflected in the net, which, if you get that many deflections, normally it's not going in.
Well, I had Crystal Palace. I think every time Man City goes down early, I always look at the live bet, and it never, unfortunately, is enticing enough to take it, even though it's going to happen basically every time, and it's free money. I think I looked and they were down 2-0, and it was like plus 215 or 220, and it's like, I mean, that's solid because they're going to do it, but like any other team down 2 goals, it's a lot more than that. But obviously, the bookies know what they're doing.
They're coming back, but you're like, just in case they don't come back this time. But yeah, I mean, it was. I think taking Man City to win outright, it was just way too expensive. And even when they went down, you're like, well, I'm not sure I want to actually bet on this. I was actually thinking of betting Crystal Palace to actually win, just based on their start of the year. They've been sort of coming out strong. I didn't even realize they didn't have Zaha playing. But I was thinking about putting them, a small bet as plus 1,600. And then when they went up 2-0, I was like, oh my gosh, I should have bet this. And then all of a sudden they lost 4-2. And I'm like, okay, thank goodness I didn't, because if I did, I would have been very, very mad. The next game, I think, was Fulham at Arsenal. Fulham's not a bad team at all. I think they were playing on the road against one of the hottest teams in the Premier League, and they actually managed to take the lead in the 55th minute. So they made it through halftime, 0-0. This is the game where I did not want to use Arsenal money line in my parlays based on how Fulham was playing. I feel like they had been playing very well, and even going on the road, I was like, I'm not sure I want to just pick Arsenal to win. Obviously, Arsenal was really putting on the pressure. And then in the 63rd minute, I think it was Odegaard scored a goal to tie it. And then after that, they just kept on peppering Fulham over and over and over again. And it was only a matter of time that they actually scored in the 85th minute. So for any bettors out there that did take Arsenal money line to win over Fulham, you were obviously sweating it for a large portion of the game, especially when Fulham took the lead. And then, Arsenal didn't actually take the game winner until like I said, in the 85th minute. But, that's what good teams do. They find ways to come back. City did it. Arsenal did it. That's why they're at the top of the leaderboard right now. Some other teams, like when you go down a goal, they just don't have the mental capacity and will to actually, come back into these games. So, I think looking at Arsenal is actually a decent team to possibly maybe live bet on when they do go down a goal.
Yeah, and Anthony Robinson, the U.S. left back, actually played really well against Saka one-on-one quite a bit.
Yep.
I think he won more of the matchups of that game, so it's obviously good news for the U.S. team. Looking forward to later on in the World Cup.
But I'm getting super excited watching all of our U.S. players play. There was the Musa goal that was taken back today.
That was ridiculous.
That was an insane rip. But just watching all the different teams on even different leagues, like he's part of Valencia. I think he's Valencia, and then it's just fun to watch these other players. And I'm just getting stoked for the World Cup.
They're signing Cavani too, so they're adding some talent there. Where are we at?
I think I had the next game too. It was actually West Ham at Villa. I mean, I'll be 100% honest. This game was an absolute joke. The combined XG for both of the teams for the entire game was 0.63. And they don't even have good defenses. I think it's the lowest combined XG game of the year. I'm actually starting to question my loyalty to Aston Villa after watching Jake jump ship from a sinking Man United and go over to Leeds after being a Man U fan for like 15 years. I'm shocked he hasn't received more flack for that. And the fact that I only joined Aston Villa last year, part of me is thinking maybe I should switch teams.
I think everybody can make their bid for you in a loan move tomorrow's podcast. So
maybe it's brought up as a vote. I don't know. I mean, even though Villa was favored to win from an XG perspective, which is what I've been looking at, you have to realize that West Ham has not scored a goal, and I think their time is coming. I said last week I actually did like West Ham to win this game, even though I'm a Villa fan. I think for the season their expected goals is almost 4, and they don't have 1. So they, like I said, once you hit a 1 XG, you're expected to score 100% of the time. They have a 4. They have no goals. It was only a matter of time. And if you actually watch the game, their goal was a shot that was like from 25 yards out that deflected off the defender's leg and kind of popped it up over the goalie and gave it like this wicked arc to go over Emmy. So unfortunately, we lost that game. But, again, I think West Ham just doesn't have the offense that they did last year.
Last 2 games, Newcastle, we talked about that already. Obviously, they had that 60% or whatever, 40% chance there at the end off the header that hit the crossbar. That was painful. Wolves played pretty well, but Newcastle had their shots at the end. Ended up being 1-1 with a draw. Newcastle was 1.93 versus 1.13 unexpected goals. So hurts that they should have had almost 2 goals and they didn't, to kind of ruin some more bets for us. But can't win them all, and Kevin's team was due for a letdown, I guess, in that game. The last game of the week was a pretty fun one. Spurs on the road versus Nottingham. Spurs did play better. We're the better team. Forest didn't have too much offensively. Denise kind of would just hang out on the left side and dribble around and lose the ball for Forest, and Spurs ended up getting a couple goals there, and I think it was both in the second half. So 2-0. It was 2.44 versus 0.8. So Spurs should have won. They did. I tried to throw a last-minute ditch parlay in to try to save the week there a little bit with Spurs and over on 2.5 goals and something else. And unfortunately, they didn't get that third goal. But, Spurs closed it out, which, we'll see how they do this week, which will come up later in our picks of the week.
Yes, sir. So I think that was all the recaps from last week. I'll get going on this upcoming games.
Midweek games, first time of the year. So it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday football.
Hence why we're doing a Monday night podcast at 11 p.m. So the first game of this upcoming week is going to be Brentford at Crystal Palace. Based on the XG, Crystal Palace is definitely favored to win this game. I think the problem is that Zaha has played in 3 out of their first 4 matches, and he is a huge contributor to their XG, whether he's trying to score goals or he's creating assists for others. If he does not play, I actually like Brentford to win this game. They're actually plus 245 to win. So my pick here would be if Zaha does not play, then I'm taking Brentford money line. But if he does play, I'm probably just going to stay away from the game because I'm not really sure what's going to happen. The next game was the Brighton at Fulham. Like I said, Fulham is definitely not an easy team at the moment, but Brighton has the least amount of goals scored against them this season. Regardless of home or away, they're the third amongst the 20 teams for expected goals against, sitting at only 3.52 goals against in their first 4 matches. So, the expected goals against them is not even a goal a game. Only Man City and Arsenal are better. So Brighton is definitely favored in this game. I actually do like Brighton to win, even though they're going on the road. So my pick would be Brighton at plus 130.
Next up is my Chelsea Blues are on the road at Southampton. I think similar to last week when Southampton was hosting Man U. They're a good team at home. They play sound on defense usually. I do think Chelsea hopefully can get through a game with 11 guys. 2 weeks in a row they've had 2 yellow cards. They're getting Koulibaly back. They'll be without Gallagher, so we'll see what they do in the midfield. But Kovacic did play towards the end of the last game. I'm not sure if Fofana will come in for his first game on defense or not, but I do think they're coming around. I think they're finding somewhat of a groove with Sterling, and I think they are favorites on the road. Again, I talked about home teams, but they are minus 190 for this game, or minus 1 with the spread. But expected goals, for this week are actually a little bit closer than that. So it should be a tight game, but I do think a 1-0 or 2-1 victory for Chelsea on the road. I think they're finding their groove hopefully a little bit. Next game, again, we have Leeds United States coming through with the national game of the morning, throwing Chelsea and Fulham and everybody else on Peacock. So Leeds gets the USA game. They're at home again after being on the road last week and kind of not playing very well against the pretty crappy Everton squad. Everton somehow, again, they shouldn't have, but got the draw against Brentford last week. But I think on a short week heading to Leeds, it's a team that plays fast. They press. They're going to be all over you. Their crowd pushes them quite a bit. And I just think Leeds are going to keep going and playing well at home. It's funny, the expected predicted goals actually favor Everton, which I would have not expected. And I think the odds are Leeds are plus 105 and Everton plus 240. So interesting on the stats there, but I do think Leeds, and maybe we're biased, but I do think at home on a short week against a not too good of a team in Everton is going to favor them.
No, I agree. I like Leeds in that game. My game is Wolves at Bournemouth. I mean, Bournemouth got absolutely destroyed last week. I'm sure there's probably some people on that team that are questioning whether or not they should even be in the Premier League or not. Some people were calling it an embarrassing loss. Now they have to play Wolves, and even though they're playing at home, Wolves have a great defense with only 4 goals against, and that is better than most teams in the entire Premier League. The Wolves did the same thing last year. I think they ended up in the top 10, and the only reason is because they had a great defense and just didn't allow a lot of goals. Wolves to win outright are plus 115, and I just don't see their defense crumbling versus a Bournemouth team who really hasn't produced anything all season long. Even when Bournemouth beat Villa week 1, their expected goals were, I think it was under 1. They scored 2. They got lucky, but I'm definitely going to be taking Wolves in a bunch of my parlays.
To use an American football term, they say defense travels better on the road than offense. So the Wolves have that in their favor. Correct.
The next game, unfortunately, is Villa at Arsenal. Villa is 1-0-3. It's about to be 1-0-4. Something about this game is screaming lock of the week. However, at the same time, I don't want to put bad juju on Travis's Gunners because apparently my lock of the weeks are just failures. I don't think Villa has any idea what they're doing this year. 7 goals against, 3 goals for. We actually got lucky when we beat Everton. We had a decent goal, but at the same time, Everton had so many different chances that we probably shouldn't have won that game. And if you think about it, if we didn't win that game, or Aston Villa would literally be at the bottom of the table in 20th place by themselves. So I really like Arsenal at minus 210. I think it's good value. I don't even think you need to put a minus one if you don't want to. But I do think that they just win hands down. You have the number one team in the league, Arsenal. They have one of the best home XGs, and they're playing one of the worst teams in the league right now.
Next up, we got Man City back at home against Forest. Nottingham didn't look great last week, but in City obviously did not start off hot, but came on strong as they always do. I think this is an interesting one because Man City, I believe, is -3 favorites with the spread, over 4 goals in the game. I do think Forest can keep it within 3. I think, more than that, you never know, but I think more than that, I would not want to bet on it. So I do, would love to hammer Man City, but obviously the money line spread is just, something to throw into a big parlay, but not something you put any money on unless you got a ton in the bank. But I do think Forest can hang on, whether it's 4-1 or 3-0, something like that, to where you won't lose your money on the -3 line bet. But I just think Forest is not Bournemouth for Liverpool last week, so that would. I think it's a tough game with those odds in soccer. It's always hard to kind of bet on those big spreads.
Yep.
Next, we got Tottenham at West Ham. I think this is always a pretty good game with these two squads. Unfortunately, West Ham just has the same team they've had, but is not playing that way at all. And the Spurs have some magic this year. Players are, talent's there, coaches there. So I think you're looking at this game. Actually, the expected goals predictions are 1.55 to 0.86 for Spurs. So pretty significant there, even on the road. And I think this, the spreads for the game, you got Tottenham at -110, West Ham at plus 265. So I like the Spurs here to keep rolling. Again, I always, but knowing Graham, there's always a dud game in their path, but I don't think it's quite yet. And West Ham just can't simply score, and I find it hard for the Spurs not to get a goal in this game at a minimum. So I think you'd ride the Spurs here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't understand how West Ham could beat them right now, just the way that they're playing. Obviously, teams can turn things around in a week, but at the same time, Spurs, I'm taking Spurs in a lot of my games. And the crazy part is that they're actually even money to just win outright. Even though they've had a hot start, West Ham has been dog crap. And the last game for me, Newcastle at Liverpool. I mean, I think Liverpool has not had a great start, right? Tying Fulham, tying Crystal Palace. They lost to Man U. They come out and they beat a very poor promoted team, Bournemouth, 9-0. I wouldn't say that Liverpool's back. I think that they need to have a couple games before they really start proving themselves as, the Liverpool of last year. So I don't really like, even though the odds are -325 against Newcastle, and Newcastle does not play well on the road. They played much better at home at St. James Park when the crowds got everything rocking. I still don't like the odds. So even though it's -325, I'm probably just going to stay away from that game.
Last game of the week on Thursday, solo game on Thursday. You got Leicester at home versus Man United. I think there's, again, another very tough game to bet on. Man U seems to be turning it around. They're adding more players. They just signed, I think, $100 million deal for Anthony from Ajax. I don't know if he'll be playing this week, but in Leicester, I just think they just don't look good. They're just not in sync. They're not scoring. Bavardi's always dangerous. At home, is obviously in their favor. Again, I think this is a game to stay away from. If you were going to bet it, I would lean towards Man U, but they're -110 on the road with their start. So I find that pretty scary, to be honest with you. The under 3 goals, I think, could be interesting. But again, I think that's a game we're going to stay away from most likely.
Yep.
Before
I think that's it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was gonna jump into lock of the weeks, but if you got something, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say before we get to our picks, since we've been so miserably bad, I thought since he couldn't join tonight as he wanted because we got a late start, but our resident podcast host of the regular On the Bender podcast, him and Graham are our two hosts there, but Reimer has been following along with us on text messages and throughout the season. His picks were, probably better than ours overall, but just to throw these in here for him, his picks of this week or for these midweek games, he likes Arsenal -1 over Villa or money line. As we said, he likes the Wolves money line, which we also said he thinks the Bournemouth Wolves under 2.5 goals. For fun, he's throwing the Forest +3 against Man City or a draw, which is at +1100 odds. And then also Spurs money line. So I think his picks for the most part follow along with what we've thrown out here today.
Yep. No, I agree. And I actually wrote these down prior to him reaching out. Obviously, Arsenal over Villa is definitely something that's on my radar.
But hold on. Picks of the week.
I noticed how you said picks of the week instead of locks of the week.
Yeah, we gotta step back on the locks, I think. But
so I mean, looking at the Arsenal game, Arsenal versus Villa. I could just take them minus, I think it's -210 or whatever to just win outright. The way that Villa's defense has been playing, I actually just like Arsenal to just win outright. I'm going to take them -1, which has a little bit better odds than just winning. So now they actually have to win by 2 to sort of win the bet. And it's -134. So a $50 bet pays $37.31. So that's my lock of the week. Sorry, Travis.
Time for a win, but all right. Well, I'm just like in fantasy Premier League, you get these chips you can play throughout the year. We'll have to determine how many of these we can throw out there. But just made it up tonight. I think we're gonna have our first lock of the week whammy bet. Which essentially means you can double your bet of what the set line is. So for these locks of the week, it's usually $50. I'm going $100, trying to have a little comeback here. We're going Spurs -0.5 goal on the road at West Ham. They're favored by more than that in expected goals. I'm trusting the Spurs this year, and I think this is the time to make a bounce back. So we're going with the whammy bet, first one of the season, $100 to win 95. Spurs -0.5 goal at West Ham. So I believe that's a Wednesday kick. So we'll wait a couple days, but first whammy of the season.
Let's go. We need it. Now my parlay lock. I'm just going with 4 teams just to win outright. First one is Arsenal to over Villa. I just don't see them. I don't see them losing or even tying. I don't think it's gonna be close. City. I think that they are rocking on all cylinders right now, even with a short game week and having a mid-game week and then a game on over the weekend. I don't care who they put in their lineup; they have such a deep bench, and like you said, this is what you want to look for in these types of games, especially teams that are at home. So I think they win easily. I am going to throw Liverpool in there. Maybe that 9-0 win over Bournemouth is something that just woke them up. They definitely looked like a different team. I know they were playing Bournemouth, but they played very well. So I think they get the W. And then I also picked Tottenham. So just taking all of those teams just win outright pays +316. So on my $25 bet, then it pays out $78.94.
Perfect. My parlay, I'm going with just 3 games. Again, I really like the Wolves just because Bournemouth is so bad. Hopefully the home team doesn't bite. But in the Wolves, +105, money line there. Riding with my Chelsea Blues. Just think they're the better team with Southampton, and they tend to outshine and do their best against those bad teams and pull away. Hopefully that happens at -185 money line. And then I love, again, Arsenal. I just think Villa's not there. Arsenal money line to throw in there at -240. So Wolves money line, Chelsea money line, Arsenal money line is 25 to win, to pay out 86.85 in profit for my parlay of the week. My long shot, I'll save yours for last because you're going to need a ledger to write down all the bets. So mine's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 as well, I guess. So it's not that crazy, but not as crazy as yours. So $10 to win 420. I'm going Fulham, Brighton over 2.5 goals. The expected average goals is 3.5 for that one. So I feel like 2.5 is a safe spot. Crystal Palace of Brentford also over 2.5 goals. That's an expected 3.75 goals. So I feel like you're getting, a lot of value there. Those are both plus 100 bets. So like those in there. Chelsea win. We got Leeds win at home. I think, back at home against Everton. I think taking them in pretty good odds. Man City victory, just throwing that in. Arsenal victory, like we talked about, and Wolves victory. So 7 teams, $10 to win 420. Wolves victory, Arsenal victory, Man City victory, Leeds, Chelsea victories, over 2.5 goals in both the Fulham Brighton game and Crystal Palace Brentford game. So long shot. We'll see what happens.
Nice. Yeah, last week I went 6 for 7 in my long shot, so I decided to up my long shot to 10 teams or 10 picks. I actually do like a lot of these bets, so this is not me just doing just a bunch of random picks. I'll probably have a lot of bets with these specific games just individually, but I like Man City -2. I like Man United money line over Leicester. I like Arsenal -1 over Aston Villa. I actually like the Brighton Fulham game under 3. I like Southampton +1.5 versus Chelsea. I think the Tottenham and the West Ham game goes over 2.5. I can easily see West Ham finally getting a legit goal, and then the Spurs having to score 2 to win. And then I like Liverpool money line, Leeds money line, Wolves money line, and then for the last game, Brentford money line. But I'm only going to pick that game if Zaha does not play for Crystal Palace. So 10 teams. I'm not going to even repeat it because there's so many. We'll just put it up on the Instagram.
$10 to win what? Have we done it?
$10. Oh, yeah, that's right. This is the fun part. It actually pays plus 39,327. So
that's dollars.
Pays $3,932.75.
Jesus, I hate when our bets go against each other because we both can't get them, but we gotta coordinate that better next time. Either way, we're not winning, so it is what it is. But
all right. Win this week, I'm telling you.
Short week, games tomorrow, games for everybody to watch while they're at work on their second screens. Episode 4 is done here. We'll have regular On a Bender podcasts being recorded most likely tomorrow. We'll have another episode of this to do, I think, Friday ahead of week episode 5. But hopefully we turn it around. May not be a boost in the post on Facebook this week until we get some victories. But cheers, Duke.
Cheers, bud. Have a great weekend. That's great. Get a W.